My name is Myrtle, and I am 68 years old. This Thanksgiving, my son's wife looked me straight in the eye at a table full of family and told me I had to start paying $2,500 a month to live in what used to be my own son's home. The smell of roast turkey and pumpkin pie suddenly felt thick and suffocating. I could see my son Gabriel staring down at his plate, his shoulders hunched. My grandson, little Eli, was kicking his feet under the table, completely unaware that his grandmother's world was just shattered. I felt my heart, a tired old muscle, give a hard, painful thump against my ribs. It was not a request. It was a public eviction notice, wrapped in gravy and good manners. Before I share how a quiet grandmother like me found the strength to fight back, I want to know if you have ever felt that specific kind of family betrayal. If you have ever trusted someone with your heart and your security, only to have them turn it into a transaction, please let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear how I discovered the shocking proof hidden right under my own roof, I hope you will follow this story with me. If you are just joining us, welcome. Please consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support means more than you know, especially when sharing something this personal. It all started with a promise. A little over 18 months ago, my husband Harold had been gone for 5 years, and the silence in our 3-bedroom house was getting louder and heavier. Gabriel and his wife Chloe started visiting more often. Chloe was always so concerned. Myrtle, she'd say, her voice sweet as honey, "This big house is too much for you. The stairs alone that are a hazard." She had a point. My knees ached. Then one evening, they presented their solution. The Golden Years Plan, Chloe called it. They wanted to buy a bigger house, one with a proper in-law suite on the main floor for me. But they needed a larger down payment. If I sold my house, my fully paid-off home that Harold and I built our life in, I could contribute that money. In return, I would have a beautiful private space with them be part of my grandson Eli's daily life, and never have to worry about property taxes or repairs again. "We will take care of you, Mom," Gabriel said, holding my hand. It is what Dad would have wanted. That last sentence undid me. Letting go of my home was an agony. I remember Frank, my neighbor for 30 years, helping me pack up my book collection. He looked at me, his old eyes worried. "You sure about this, Myrtle?" "Once that house is gone, it is gone." I patted his arm. "Family is more important than bricks and mortar, Frank." I believed that. I truly did. The new house was stunning. A modern gray-sided thing with too many windows. My suite was lovely, really. It had its own little bathroom. I unpacked my favorite photographs, a quilt my mother made, and a few precious books. The first few weeks were peaceful. I helped with Eli after school. I tried to cook meals, but Chloe gently steered me away from her stainless steel appliances. "Oh, no need, Myrtle. I have a system. Just relax." So I tried to relax. But slowly, the space around me began to shrink. Chloe decided my furniture clashed. My keepsakes were dust collectors. One by one, pieces of my life were boxed up and moved to the garage. My room stopped feeling like my own. It felt like a very nice hotel room, one I was beginning to suspect had a hidden checkout time. The requests for money started small. About 3 months after I moved in, Chloe sat me down with a spreadsheet. "Just to be fair, since you are living here and using utilities," she said, pointing to numbers on her laptop screen. "How about $200 a month?" It seemed reasonable, if a bit cold. I agreed. That number became 300, then 4. Each time, it was presented as a simple adjustment for rising costs. I missed my garden. The new house had a manicured lawn, but no soil for me to tend. One day, I bought a few small pots and some basil and tomato seedlings. I set them on the small patio outside my sliding door. Chloe saw them the next evening. "Oh, Myrtle, those clay pots will leave water rings on the composite decking, and the soil will attract bugs. Let's keep the outdoor aesthetic clean, shall we?" She smiled, but her eyes were not asking. I moved the pots to the garage, where they eventually died from lack of sun. The final straw, before Thanksgiving, was the conversation about Eli. I was reading to him from an old copy of Charlotte's Web, a book I had read to Gabriel. Chloe walked in and listened for a moment. "Eli, honey, it is time for your Mandarin lesson on the tablet." She then turned to me. "We are focusing on modern skill-building activities, Myrtle. Maybe stick to the books we have in his room." The dismissal was a physical slap. That night, I called my old friend Rita. I have known Rita since we were in college. She is a retired lawyer, sharp as a tack, and never one to mince words. "Rita," I whispered into the phone, feeling like a teenager, complaining about her parents. "I think I made a terrible mistake." I told her everything. The money, the pots, the book. Rita was silent for a long moment. "Listen to me, Myrtle. This is a classic isolation and control playbook. She is cutting off your sources of joy and independence to make you pliable. Now, you said they want to have a family financial talk at Thanksgiving." "Yes, with her cousin and husband visiting too. She said it is for full transparency." Rita snorted. "Transparency. Right. She is going to ambush you in front of an audience to pressure you. Here is what you do. Do not react. Do not agree to anything. Do not sign a single piece of paper, no matter what. You say, 'I need to review this independently.' You say it as many times as you have to. Promise me." "I promise," I said, the weight of her words settling in my stomach like stones. Thanksgiving Day arrived, bright and cold. The house was filled with the smell of roasting turkey and Chloe's expensive candles. Her cousin Lydia and Lydia's husband were there, cheerful and loud. I helped where I was allowed, setting the table with Chloe's perfectly mismatched vintage plates. Every time I tried to engage Gabriel, he found a reason to be elsewhere, fixing a light, checking the wine. We sat down to eat. For a few moments, it was normal. The chatter, the passing of dishes. Eli was proudly explaining how he helped make the sweet potato casserole. I felt a flicker of the old warmth. Then, as we were finishing the main course, Chloe tapped her fork gently against her water glass. "Everyone, since we are all here together, I wanted to take a quick moment to share something important. Gabriel and I have been looking at our family finances, and we believe in total openness." She beamed a perfect white smile around the table. My blood ran cold. This was it. "As you know, Myrtle has been living with us in our in-law suite," she continued, her voice smooth, "to ensure everything is fair and square, and to align with current market rates for such a lovely private space in this area. We are formalizing a simple month-to-month rental agreement. It is really just a technicality. The amount will be $2,500 starting December 1st. The number hung in the air, monstrous. Lydia stopped chewing. Her husband coughed. I looked at Gabriel. His face was pale, his eyes locked on his half-eaten food. He would not look at me. Chloe reached beside her chair and produced a single sheet of paper. She slid it down the table toward me. "It is all very standard. We can take care of the signature now and then, enjoy dessert, without any business hanging over us." The room began to tilt. $2,500. That was nearly my entire Social Security check. Rita's voice echoed in my head. "Do not agree. Do not sign." I picked up the paper. the words blurred. Rental agreement at the top. My name typed in. I set the paper down carefully next to my plate. I folded my hands in my lap to hide their trembling. I looked directly at Chloe and then at my son, who finally glanced up. I saw shame flicker in his eyes, and then it was gone. I will need some time to read this, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, almost foreign to my own ears. Thank you for the transparency. The silence that followed was heavier than the turkey. Chloe's smile tightened at the corners. Of course, take your time, but the first payment will be due December 1st. The rest of the meal passed in a muffled, painful haze. The pie tasted like nothing. Back in my room, the silence was deafening. The cheerful patterned curtains, chosen by Chloe, seemed to mock me. $2,500. It was not about the money, not really. It was about the unmasking. The pretense of family was gone, stripped away, to reveal a cold landlord-tenant relationship I never agreed to. I needed to see the original plan. We never signed anything formal, but I had jotted notes in my old calendar, and there was an email thread from Gabriel early on talking about the family arrangement. I kept important papers in a plastic file box under my bed. I pulled it out. I found the calendar. My own handwriting. Meeting with Gabe and Chloe. Discuss selling house for down payment on joint home. My contribution equals security and care. My throat tightened. I searched for the email printouts. They were gone. I was sure I had put them in this box. A slow, cold dread began to creep up my spine. Then I remembered something else. When I first moved in, Chloe had kindly offered to help me update my address for all my accounts. She had me sign a stack of blank change of address forms, she said, to make it easier. My heart started pounding a frantic rhythm. What else had I signed? I needed to see if Gabriel had any of the old paperwork. I knew he kept files for the house in a locked cabinet in his home office. He kept the key on his key ring, but I also knew from a time he had locked himself out that there was a spare key tucked behind a certain bookshelf in the living room. It was a desperate, terrible idea, but the feeling of being erased of my own history and agreements being wiped clean was stronger than my fear. The next day was Black Friday. Chloe and Gabriel left early in the morning for sales, taking Eli with them. The house was empty and quiet. I stood in the living room for a long time, wrestling with myself. This was wrong. Snooping was wrong. But so was forging a family. I found the key. My hands shook as I opened the file cabinet. I found a folder labeled Mom. My breath caught. Inside were utility bills I had paid, printouts of my Social Security statements, and notes in Chloe's handwriting with calculations. And then, at the very bottom, I found two documents. The first was a rental agreement, identical to the one from Thanksgiving, but this one was dated 6 months ago, and it had a signature on it. My signature, or a very good forgery of it. The slope of the M was wrong. Harold used to tease me about my loopy Y. This one was sharp, angular. A sick feeling washed over me. The second document was a photocopy of the deed to the house. I scanned it, looking for my name, for any mention of a life estate, or a lien that secured my contribution. My eyes darted over the legal language. Then I saw it. The owners, Gabriel A. Miller and Chloe E. Miller. That was it. No mention of Myrtle J. Simmons. No record of my $80,000 contribution from the sale of my home. Nothing. I stood there in the cool, dark office, the papers trembling in my hands. The promise, the plan, my security, it had all been a lie. They had used my money to buy their house, and then They had planned for months to turn me into a paying tenant or force me out. The forgery was not just a signature. It was the deliberate destruction of our agreement. I carefully placed everything back exactly as I found it. I locked the cabinet. I returned the key. Then I went to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and cried silent, furious tears. This was no longer just hurt feelings. This was fraud. I called Rita as soon as I could speak, without my voice breaking. "You were right." I said the words thick. "It is worse than an ambush." I told her about the forged rental agreement and the deed. Rita's tone shifted from concerned friend to seasoned attorney in an instant. "Myrtle, listen carefully. This is serious. Forgery is a crime. What they have done with your financial contribution could be construed as fraud or breach of a verbal contract. But we need evidence. Do not under any circumstances remove those documents from that cabinet. That could be used against you. You need to photograph them. Get clear pictures of every page, especially the signatures and the deed. Use your phone. Do it when you are absolutely sure they will be gone for a while." "I feel like a spy in my own family's house," I whispered, the shame returning. "You are not the spy, Myrtle. You are the victim of a conspiracy. Remember that. Gather your proof. Then we will decide on the next step." The opportunity came the following Wednesday. Chloe had a long lunch meeting, and Gabriel was taking Eli to a dentist appointment after school. The house would be empty for over 2 hours. I felt nauseous with anxiety as I heard their cars leave. I retrieved the key, went into the office, and with hands steadied by pure anger, I opened the cabinet. I took out the folder. I laid the documents on Gabriel's desk, under the bright light of his lamp. I used my phone to take dozens of pictures, close-ups, wide shots, making sure every word was legible. The flash seemed obscenely loud in the quiet house. Just as I was finishing, the doorbell rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I scrambled to put everything back, my heart hammering. I peeked out the window. It was Frank, my old neighbor, standing on the porch with a small, potted poinsettia. I let him in, trying to compose myself. "Frank, what a surprise. Just in the neighborhood. Thought I would say hello before the holidays," he said, his kind eyes studying my face. "You all right, Myrtle? You look like you have seen a ghost." The kindness undid me. We sat in the living room, and over a cup of tea, the whole story spilled out. Not the forgery part, not yet, but the rent demand, the feeling of being pushed out. Frank listened, his face growing grim. "I knew it," he muttered. "I had a bad feeling about that woman from the start." Then he paused. "You know my niece Sharon. She works over at the county recorder's office. She handles property deeds all day. If you want, I could ask her to take a discreet look at the official records for this address. See what is really on file. No one would ever know." It was a lifeline. A way to confirm what I had seen was the official truth. "Frank, I would be so grateful," I said, tears welling up again, but this time from a sliver of hope. That night, I looked at the photos on my phone. The forged signature. The deed with only their names. I thought of Harold. He was a peaceful man, but he was not a pushover. He believed in fairness. "What would you do?" I asked the empty room. I knew the answer. He would fight not with anger, but with relentless, calm principle. He would do it for me. Now I had to do it for myself, and in a strange way, for the son we raised, who seemed to have lost his way. I was not just fighting for a room. I was fighting for the truth, and for the chance to have a real relationship with my grandson, one not filtered through Chloe's control. The fear was still there, but beneath it now was a solid core of resolve. The pressure from Chloe became a daily drip, a printed reminder of the rent due date left on my pillow. Casual comments about how expensive the heating bill was. Gabriel remained a ghost, leaving for work early, coming home late. The house was a prison of tense silence. A week later, Frank called. "Sharon looked it up," he said, his voice low. "The official deed only has their two names on it. No life estate, no mention of any other financial interest. Nothing. It was the final confirmation." I thanked him, my hand steady on the phone. I sent all of the photos to Rita. She called me back within the hour. "This is unequivocal," she said. "We have enough. You need to confront them, but on your terms with an exit strategy. You cannot stay there after this. I have drafted a formal demand letter. We will give them a choice. They can buy out your financial interest in the property at a fair market rate calculated from your contribution to the down payment, or we will file a civil suit for fraud and file a police report for the forgery. The letter will be from me as your counsel." I packed a suitcase that night, just the essentials and my most precious items. Harold's watch, my mother's quilt, the photo albums. I arranged to stay with Rita starting the next evening. Then I asked Gabriel and Chloe to sit down with me after dinner. No distractions, no Eli. The air in the living room was icy. Chloe sat poised on the edge of the sofa, already defensive. Gabriel looked exhausted. "You wanted to talk, Myrtle?" Chloe began, her voice clipped. "About the rental agreement, I assume. Time is running out." I took a deep breath, channeling every bit of Harold's calm strength. "This is not about the rental agreement, Chloe. This is about the original agreement, the one where I sold my home to contribute to the down payment for this house, in exchange for a place to live and care for the rest of my life." Chloe waved a hand dismissively. "That was a family understanding. Circumstances change. We need to be financially responsible adults. An understanding you decided to formalize without me 6 months ago." I asked quietly. I picked up my phone from the coffee table. With this, I turned the screen to face them, showing the clearest picture of the forged rental agreement with the fake signature. Gabriel's head snapped up. He leaned forward, his eyes wide. "What is that?" "It is a rental agreement with a forged copy of my signature dated 6 months ago. It was in your file cabinet, Gabriel, in the folder labeled Mom." Chloe's composure cracked. "You went through our private files? How dare you? That is a violation." "I dare, because I was looking for the truth you have been hiding," I said, my voice gaining strength. "And I found this too." I swiped to the picture of the deed. The deed to this house, which only has your two names on it. No record of my $80,000 contribution. That is not a changed circumstance, Chloe. That is a premeditated plan. Gabriel stood up, his face ashen. "Chloe, what is she talking about? The deed? We never... Mom was supposed to be..." "Supposed to be what, Gabriel?" I asked, looking at my son. "A tenant, a source of income, after we had a deal, after you used my life's equity." Chloe jumped to her feet, her anger filling the room. "This is my house, mine and Gabriel's. We worked for it. You are a guest, and an ungrateful one, at that. If you do not like the terms, you can leave. Get out of my house." The words hung in the air, vicious and final. I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, to defend me, to defend what was right. He just stared at Chloe, a complex storm of confusion, fear, and dawning horror on his face. He was paralyzed. I slowly placed my phone back in my pocket. I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles from my pants. I looked at Chloe, then at my silent son. I felt a profound, heartbreaking clarity. I was already gone from this place. Now, I just had to make it official. I looked at them both, and with a calm that seemed to come from somewhere outside myself, I said the 5 words that changed everything. I am contacting my lawyer. Then I turned and walked back to my room, closed the door, and called Rita to come get me. The first few nights at Rita's small, cluttered, wonderfully lived-in apartment were a blur of alternating numbness and acute pain. The betrayal was a physical ache. Rita handled everything. She sent the demand letter via certified mail. The choice was clear: a one-time payment of $120,000, her calculation of my share of the equity growth plus my original contribution, or face legal action. They chose to pay. Chloe's father, it turned out, provided a loan to cover it. There were no apologies, just a series of terse emails between their lawyer and Rita. The money hit my account. It was not about the money, but the money represented an admission. It was a settlement for a broken promise. Gabriel called me once, about 2 weeks later. He was sobbing. "Mom, I am so sorry. I did not know about the forgery. I did not know she had filed the deed like that. I let her handle things. I was weak. I listened. I believed he was sorry. I also believed his weakness had allowed this to happen. I need time, Gabriel," I said. "A lot of time." With the money in my savings, I bought a little cottage. It is not fancy. It has 2 bedrooms, one of which I use as a library for my books. The yard is small, but it is mine. Frank helped me build a raised garden bed. I planted tomatoes and basil. My relationship with Gabriel is a fragile, tentative thing. He visits alone sometimes with Eli. We have coffee. We do not talk about Chloe or the house. We talk about Eli's school, about the weather, about memories of Harold that do not hurt. It is surface level, and it may never go deeper again. That is the consequence. I have forgiven my son because holding on to that poison would only hurt me. But trust is a different currency, and he spent all of ours. The lesson was not what I expected. I thought I would learn about the cruelty of others. Instead, I learned about the resilience within myself. I learned that home is not a gift someone else can give or take away. Home is the peace you carry. It is the courage to say no more when everything in you is screaming to keep the peace. It is the dignity of walking away from a table where you are no longer considered family and building your own table no matter how small. That forged signature was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the line in the sand. It showed me in undeniable ink exactly who they were. And in doing so, it finally showed me who I could be. Now, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had to rebuild your sense of home after a betrayal? What was the moment you knew you had to stand up for yourself, no matter the cost? Please share your stories in the comments below. If my story resonated with you or gave you a little strength, please like this video. It helps others find these important conversations. And if you are not yet subscribed, I would be honored if you would join this community. We are all navigating complicated families and learning to protect our own peace. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that it is never too late to start over on your own terms. Thank you for listening to my story. May you always remember your own unshakable worth, and may you always have the key to your own front door. Good night.